Hello boys, Srimad Bhakti Raghav Swami, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Skandiviti, founder Charyas, Divine Grace and Prabhupada ki, Nanacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Dainitai Gaura Pimanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschasya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Sarabhyaya Namaha Om Sarabhyaya Namaha Om Sarabhyaya Namaha Mukam karoti vasalam pangum langayate girim yatripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam yatripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today reading from canto number 3. Part 2. Kardama, thank you. Much better. Text number 4. God. Okay. Tasyāṁ. That's the text? Yeah. Sa Vai mahā-yogī yuktāyāṁ yoga-lakṣaṇaiḥ sasarja katidhā vīryam tan me śuśrūṣave vada tasyāṁ savai mahā-yogī yuktāyāṁ yoga-lakṣaṇaiḥ sasarja katidhā vīryam tanme śuśrūṣave vada tasyāṁ savai mahā-yogī yuktāyāṁ yoga-lakṣaṇaiḥ sasarja katidhā vīryam tanme śuśrūṣave vada. Tasyāṁ, in her, saha, Kardama Muni, vai, mahā-yogī, yuktāyāṁ, endowed, yoga-lakṣaṇaiḥ, with the eightfold symptoms of yogic perfection. Sasarja, propagated. Katidhā, how many times? Vīryam, offspring. Tat, that narration. May, to me. śuśrūṣave, who am eager to hear. Vada, tell. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace H.H Bhakti Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki. How many offspring did that great yogi beget through the princess who was endowed with eightfold perfection in the yoga principles? Oh, pray tell me this. Please tell me this, for I am eager to hear. Kindly repeat after me. How many offspring did that great yogi beget through the princess who was endowed with eightfold perfection in the yoga principles? Oh, please tell me this. Pray tell me this. It's strange. For I am eager to hear it. Purport. Here, Vidura inquired about Kardama Muni and his wife, Devahūti, and about their children. It is described here that Devahūti was very much advanced in the performance of eightfold yoga. The 8 divisions of yoga performance are described as 1. Control of the senses, 2. Strict following of the rules and regulations, 3. Practice of the different sitting postures. 4. Control of the breath. 5. Withdrawing the senses from sense objects. 6. Concentration of the mind. 7. Meditation. And 8. Self-realization. After self-realization, there are 8 further perfectional stages, which are called yoga-siddhis. The husband and wife, Kardama and Devahūti, were advanced in yoga practice. The husband was a mahā-yogī, great mystic, and the wife was a yoga-lakṣaṇa, or one advanced in yoga. They united and produced children. Formerly, after making their lives perfect, great sages and saintly persons used to beget children. Otherwise, they strictly observed the rules and regulations of celibacy. Brahmacharya, following the rules and regulations of celibacy, is required for perfection of self-realization and mystic yoga. There is no recommendation in the Vedic scriptures that one can go on enjoying material sense gratification at one's whims as one likes, and at the same time become a great meditator by praying a rascal or by paying a rascal some money. Translation again. How many offspring did that great yogi beget? Through the princess who was endowed with eightfold perfection in the yoga principles. Oh, please tell me this, for I am eager to hear it. The Bhagavatam, narrating the stories of very great personalities. They are great personalities because they have perfected the art and the science of yoga. The art and the science of yoga can only be properly understood and practiced if we properly receive the instructions that are first given in the Bhagavad Gita, or should we say in the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Prabhupada was making that point. So many yogis, so many swamis, so many sadhus, they came to the Western country. Nobody could make a devotee, or not many. Whereas, because Bhagavad Gita was, and they spoke about the Bhagavad Gita, but now because we are presenting the Bhagavad Gita as it is, although some objected at that time, and even still now. If you say that your Bhagavad Gita is as it is, that means mine is not as it is, or may not be. So, yoga, one of the most important aspects of yoga, which is being mentioned here in connection with brahmacharya life. That verse is there, that brahmacharya life, which is the beginning in the Vedic culture of one's, we could say, practice of yoga. Tapasya brahmacharyena samena cha damena cha, isn't it? Tapasya, human form of life, actually is meant for voluntary tapasya. Animals don't practice tapasya. They simply follow. They blindly follow their instinct. We also have instinct, but we have something that is different. In philosophy, anyone who has studied philosophy, the definition of human being, man is an animal, but a rational animal. So the importance of celibacy is very nicely explained here. Actually, Prabhupada is mentioning how previously one would only beget children after perfecting yoga. Means one would prepare oneself, isn't it? Generally for many years. Brahmachari training is actually meant for many years. From the age of 5 up until one completes one's education, if one goes to Gurukul. Of course, most people don't go to Gurukul, but in the Vedic culture, the whole lifestyle and the social arrangement is such that everyone gets benefit from elders, from sadhus, etc. Prabhupada would explain how we have 4 ashrams: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas. Out of the 4 ashrams, 3 are meant to be, are by definition, completely abstaining from sex life, isn't it? Means the primary focus in brahmacharya life, vanaprastha sannyas, is the mood and mentality, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Sannyas yoga. Sannyas yoga is not only for sannyasis. Sannyas yoga is for all of us. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada, I'm sure you have heard the expression, grihastha brahmachari. Grihastha brahmachari. Even within household life, in this should be especially a very important part of our aim and objective as a society, creating, training, giving an opportunity for young people who will undoubtedly, majority of people in Kali Yuga, enter householder life. Not only in Kali Yuga, it's practically the norm, which is natural. It's interesting how Srila Prabhupada, in the small essay called Gita Nagari, who knows about Gita Nagari essay? A few? Okay. It's increasing a little bit. This is an essay Prabhupada wrote in he published in 1956 in his Back to Godhead magazine. he mentions very important points. One of them that actually in our present day kind of so-called developed society, modern civilization, we will not encourage people to remain celibate. Now our brahmacharis should be careful here. It is not that one cannot and should not strive, because actually that's the whole message being given here. Even householders should be celibate. Celibacy means controlling our mind and our senses, which is only possible actually for those who actually practice Bhakti Yoga, the topmost of all yogas. And therefore, today of course, we are, according to the Vaishnava calendar, celebrating or commemorating, is it the appearance or disappearance? Disappearance, right? The disappearance of three great personalities, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswamis. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, they are meant to be our topmost example of personalities in the renounced order of life. And because of their very high level of developed consciousness, they could perform so many wonderful activities, write so many important literatures explaining actually these basic principles of the spiritual life. That is why in the Vedic culture, a householder life is only for a short few years, meant to be only for 25 years approximately, from the age of 20, 25 up until 50 approximately. So here we have great personalities like Maitreya, Vidura, who is inquisitive, wanting to hear and to know more about Kardama Muni, Devahūti, and their activities. So here is specifically mentioned how, because they were so powerful yogis, Kardama Muni is described as mahā-yogī, very great, powerful yogi, and his wife also, yoga-lakṣaṇa, because she was trained by him. The Vedic culture. Vedic culture is an eternal culture. Wife is meant to be following in the footsteps of the husband. She's meant to be trained by the husband. She can only be trained, of course, if the husband is qualified, which is a problem in modern day society. But the fact remains that this is the standard, and our goal and our objective is actually to know, to understand that standard, and to gradually work towards coming to that standard. We have to be very careful, because in modern day society, especially since the last 200 years, so many different isms, so many different philosophies have been introduced, some of which appear very, attractive. As a matter of fact, the constitution that practically most countries in the world have adopted is full of flowery language, which is actually very misleading. We speak of equality, of fraternity, but we don't act on that principle. We segregate. We give even we don't give protection to those we are meant to give protection to, human beings. We don't give protection to animals, and practically speaking to all living entities. So in other words, this is a very, foundational principle, that of tapasya, that of controlling the mind and the senses, which is meant to begin at a very young age. That's why, again, I'll refer to another important statement made by Srila Prabhupada in that essay of Gita Nagari. He speaks about Gurukul, very important subject matter. A Vedic culture, we cannot establish, we cannot re-establish, we cannot reintroduce a Vedic culture without Gurukul. Without Gurukul means without traditional Gurukul. So Srila Prabhupada makes the following statement in that essay, that in our Gurukul, he actually gives the name of the Gurukul. We're beginning a Gurukul like this, with the same name, Gita Patshala. Gita Patshala. You'll find that name in Prabhupada's essay. And he mentions how we will not accept young boys over the age of 7. We will not accept young boys over the age of 7. In other words, Prabhupada is emphasizing the need and the importance to start the training as early as possible, because that's when we can mold, the intelligence and character. Whole Vedic culture, Prabhupada, often he would say, first is character. First is character. And what else did Prabhupada say in terms of first? First is food. First is food. We should not misunderstand this statement. Yes, Maharaj, it's close to prasadam. First is food means we should be growing our own food. And because we're not doing that, most of us too often have to go and see doctors. True? Not true? He's a doctor. Means when we deviate from the principles that are given in the Shastra. So here we're speaking about especially brahmacharya life, yoga, becoming perfected in the science of yoga, and for us, of course, Ashtanga yoga. Some of us may be practicing. Ashtanga yoga is a bona fide system, but it's not the topmost system, but it can be very helpful. That's why whenever we come to the temple, most of us practice yoga by offering obeisances, or during Bhagavatam class by going like this. But practicing yoga can be helpful to control the senses, to control the mind, but the real control, and in many ways, even without practicing Ashtanga yoga, the real results, tangible results, will come when we actually perfect the science of Bhakti Yoga. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam. Vairagya, ahaituki, causeless detachment. Causeless detachment. We are endeavoring in so many ways, well, we should be. We may not all be, but we should be endeavoring to become detached, because as long as we are attached in some way or other, attached means we are still under the control of the gunas, mode of goodness, mode of passion, or mode of ignorance. Then we cannot come out of this material world. So this vairagya, detachment, and knowledge, jnanam, But in Krishna consciousness, it's not only jnanam. Knowledge, so much knowledge people can get, but above knowledge, there is what is referred to as scientific knowledge, realized knowledge, that is called vīryam. Evam prasanamanaso bhagavat bhakti jogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Only by this vijnanam. What is vijnanam? Sometimes Prabhupada translated as science. It is actually what Krishna, dadami buddhi yogam tam. Krishna gives transcendental knowledge. To who? Tasyāṁ satata yuktāyāṁ bhajatam priti purvakam. To those who are engaged in his loving devotional service. So, the devotees are actually the real scientists. Only the devotees are actually the real scientists, because devotees are meant to study the spiritual science of yoga, and devotees are also meant to study the material science of yoga. I'm not referring to Ashtanga yoga as such, although that is there. But we are meant to study and to understand and to realize, and maybe I'll just close on this point here, these two levels of dharma. Actually, the word dharma should be one of our favorite words. Comes up all the time in the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Actually, it's only the devotees who are studying and also meant to practice, meant to demonstrate this param dharma. Sabai pumsam paro dharma. It's only for those who read Srimad Bhagavatam, who are fortunate to come in contact with the Srimad Bhagavatam, who can begin to understand about this param dharma. And this param dharma, although in that particular verse it is referring especially to bhakti, sabai pumsam paro dharmo. Yes, bhakti. So, but bhakti is especially the domain of the soul. The soul by nature is meant to be engaged in activities of bhakti devotional service, but because we have this material body and we are presently living in the material world, we have to learn the science to also engage this body. And everything that we are doing, our daily occupational, what is called prescribed duties. That's a very interesting term. Prescribed duties we find in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Most people in the world today don't know about prescribed duties, or not engaged in their prescribed duties. And at the risk of becoming a little controversial, I will say that most devotees are also not engaged in their prescribed duties. Materially. Spiritually is okay. There are these two levels of prescribed duties. Important to know, important to understand. And of course, that is all nicely explained, presented in the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam especially. We refer to the Bhagavatam as the Grantaraj, the king. But Srila Jiva Goswami, since the disappearance of the great personalities have brought us to Vrindavan, Srila Jiva Goswami, who was there when these personalities were present, not only does he speak of the Srimad Bhagavatam as being the king What's another term he's using? Who has read the Tattva Sandarbha? Oh, recently or ever? A very nice term, Srila Jiva Goswami, because he understands the value and the potency of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, he's the one who has highlighted its, exalted position. So he refers to the Bhagavatam not only as Grantaraj, king of all scriptures, he refers to the Bhagavatam as the emperor of all scriptures. Kings, so many kings can be there, but usually there's only one emperor. Vedic culture, Parikshit Maharaj, Yudhishthira Maharaj, so many previous monarchs, kings, some of them became emperors. And the world will only become, once again, properly organized and peaceful and happy and prosperous when these principles of the Bhagavatam, when these principles of Sanatan Dharma, both at the spiritual level as well as the material level, will be established. And that can only be possible, will only be possible when we follow in the footsteps of great personalities whom we are reading about, Kardama Muni, Devahūti, who are described here as great yogis. They also, they were above just being ordinary yogis. So this is what our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada wants us to understand, wants us to take up, and we should know, we should be convinced more and more that it is only this type of knowledge and understanding that can actually save the world, that can actually bring meaning in the lives of individuals and bring meaning also in our individual and personal lives as well. I beg to be excused for having come late, but the sign here will not change. I should end at 9 o'clock, so I'll leave 5-10 minutes for any comments or questions. Microphone is very close to you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, sometime we are living in Brahmachari ashram, but sometimes we face one problem. Like here in Prabhupada in the Purport writing about Grihastha Brahmachari. Grihastha Brahmachari. So Prabhupada is giving very high culture in his philosophy, in his purports. But then when new people, they see that even within our society there are diverse cases. Divorce cases. So
there's some people in some villages who never heard the word.
Yes.
Anyways,
yes. So and people come and they ask us why it is happening. It becomes very difficult for us to answer. So I have two questions: why it is happening, and what explanation should I give to the new people?
So your question is that when people ask you this kind of question, what you should answer, is it?
Yes. And why it is happening?
Oh, okay. So two questions. Well, it's very simple. Although one may be taking up the spiritual life, Prabhupada explained how present day atmosphere in the world is extremely polluted, extremely degraded. And therefore even, this was taking place during Prabhupada's time, during his very presence, that brahmacharis, what to speak of sannyasis were falling down, isn't it? And regardless of our position within the system of varna and ashrama, if we are not very strictly following, it's totally natural that such situations will occur. So, I mean, the simple answer is that although individuals have taken up to the process of devotional service, there are different, at the initial stage of what is called sadhana bhakti. You can take this opportunity to speak about sadhana bhakti, because obviously those who fall are still at the level of sadhana bhakti. Those who are above, they will not be falling. So it's a good opportunity to explain that this is the beginning level of spiritual life, and even somebody may be practicing. I mean, you can give example of Bharat Maharaj. He was at the level of bhava. He was above sadhana bhakti. He was at the bhava level. Still, he became distracted and had to take another birth. Of course, he remained in his very elevated consciousness. So this, yes, is very much unfortunate. I mean, that we as devotees, we as a society, are meant to give example. And obviously, the more we see and experience individuals either divorcing or whatever, not following principles, etc., then that means that there's some work to be done. That means that we need to look at this more closely. I would say that I was mentioning very briefly this point, how in Kali Yuga, unless we are living as a community, unless we are very closely living and supporting one another, then the influence of Maya will just capture us. And this begins with this guy. You know, cell phones are one of the greatest. I mean, we can utilize it, we are utilizing it in Krishna's service, but it is very dangerous. It's there in the Shastra, right? Spiritual life is like a razor's edge. If one is inattentive, he will cut himself. So you should take those as opportunities to preach the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to those who are asking, and hopefully to our own devotees as well. Yeah. Any other? Yes. Actually, Mike should always be with him. I mean, he generally has a comment or a question.
Maharaj, in the purport to text 4 of Nectar of Instruction, you brought up the point about how we should be very closely knit community, close together.
Close together, yes.
Yeah, and so Prabhupada, he describes in text 4 of Nectar of Instruction, Dadati pratigrinati guyamakyati prichati punkte budayate chaiva sadvidhim pradilakṣaṇam, that he created ISKCON as a facility for executing these 6 loving exchanges. And simply by engaging in these loving exchanges with devotees, one can come to the platform of spiritual perfection. So it's super important.
Yes, yes. We would encourage everyone to read this fourth, the purport of the 4th verse, Nectar of Instruction. Thank you very much. Absolutely. You know, Prabhupada, in the introduction to the Nectar of Instruction, in the introduction, he mentions how this book, although a small book, is so important. I mean, both the Nectar of Instruction and Nectar of Devotion, written by Srila Rupa Goswami, are super important for all of us to hear and to read and to ultimately put into practice. The whole science of Bhakti Yoga is in these literatures. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm sorry, it's 9 o'clock, and but on the way out, maybe we can take your question. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gauda Pimanande.